thing you talked about is the idea of the intentional community, which I think is a great idea. I mean, I've developed a community called 100 Coaches, which is actually 370 people now. And the idea is they just help each other. And what's nice is over the COVID, I had 50 or 60 people, Mark Thompson and I, we spent 6 hours every weekend with these people and really formed a nice sense of community. And there's an old saying, it's lonely at the top. Well, it used to be lonely at the top. It's lonelier at the top now. Let me ask you another question. How do you deal with the fact that people are scared shitless to say anything to anybody?
Well, I think that people are scared often because they don't know each other, and they don't feel as though they are known by the people around them. So, any one thing that you say can be taken out of context by somebody who you don't feel connected with. And that's why I think it's important to first focus on building connection and sharing your stories with one another. And then that creates that sense of safety to share our opinions, our views, and our knowledge. When the pandemic began, one of my members of my lab, my lab is about 10 or 12 people. They said, well, we're really feeling disconnected. We would love to have a chance to get together and just have a standalone meeting where we just do like a rose, thorn, bud, something that's gone well in the last couple of months, something that's gone poorly, and something that we're looking forward to. And so I said, great, let's try it. I shared that we're going to do this with my lab, and people were cringing. They said, oh my goodness, this is gonna be the most awkward hour and a half of our lives. Let's never do it again. But I said, fine, well, let's just try it. We did it, and immediately I got emails from almost everyone in my lab saying, can we please do this more often? I think there are many times in our lives, and research backs this up as well, where people underestimate how positive personal connections will be. They feel scared or nervous that trying to connect with someone will be anxious, that they'll be rejected. Those are, I think, like shark attacks. Shark attacks are very rare, but very scary. And so a lot of people stay out of the ocean because they don't want to get eaten by a shark, even though it's very unlikely. Rejection and judgment are like social shark attacks. We think that they're going to happen, so we avoid having conversations that actually would lift up everyone involved. I think that we should try to lower the barrier to those conversations as much as we can.
Well said. Well, okay. Coming up, can technology be used to increase empathy? I think the answer will surprise you. Now, I think this also leads us to today's BCG Minute. Now, we asked Sandeep Kalra, which is the CEO of Persistent Systems, which is one of the world's leading digital transformation companies with more than 22,000 employees across the world. We asked him to ask all of us his BCG Minute. Here it is.
Hello, my name is Sandeep Kalra. I am the CEO of Persistent Systems, the world's leading digital transformation and enterprise modernization firm. My question for the M&M panel is, in this new world of work from anywhere with seamless demands on your time, how do you partition out time for things that matter? I can't wait to hear your response. Thank you.
Peter, why do I have a sense of this is just down your alley, right? With the day after tomorrow. What's your reflections here?
Well, it's a really good question. I think it's a fundamental question. And I think when I reflect on that based on the day after tomorrow, it's really important to carve out that time, the 10% I was talking about, to get input, to reflect, and also to act on being able to get out of your normal routine. And I think in a strange way, the pandemic gave us a little bit more opportunity to do that as individuals. I mean, we all probably have some sort of an escape mechanism, right? But I, for example, I live on a farm. I live in Belgium, and we bought a farm 20 years ago. And there are days when, you know what, I've had one meeting after another, one Zoom call, Teams meeting. And then when I get home and I get on my tractor and I drive around the fields, it gives me a time to reflect. And that clearing my mind is a wonderful way to actually come up with ideas that I would have never had if I would have stayed in the office. And the pandemic gave us an opportunity. I don't know where you guys spent your lockdown, but I have a strange hobby, Martin. I don't know if you ever told you about this, but I collect old Apple computers. I'm one of the largest Apple computer collectors in the world. And 3 years ago, I bought a church where I live, 10 minutes from our house, to house my Apple collection. And that was finished 2 weeks before lockdown. And then for 2 years, I did webinars from my Apple Chapel, as I call it. And it was wonderful because I could actually use that as an almost religious vintage computers. Tech is the new religion anyway. So it was a perfect setup there, but it gave me a time to reflect that I didn't have normally. And some of the things that I hate now is that once we go back to this hybrid life, which is quite hectic because, when we're working remotely, it's often back-to-back meetings. When we're going to the office, we have traffic jams and the complexity of daily life that's coming back. I think we need to really have that discipline to carve out that time. And not just to make sure that we get inspired, but also to make sure that we do something with that. So I think Sandeep is hitting the note when he has a really good point. We have to do something about this. And I think it's vital if we want to keep sane in this hybrid world.
And I just want to say to all of you guys out there and girls listening that the room behind Peter now is not the Apple Chapel, because that's what he calls a war room. I mean, this guy is very unique. A war room in Holland. I mean, I never met a person who have an Apple Chapel and a war room next to it. Serious stuff right now. Simel, tell me what's your view here on this?
I guess I resonate a lot with what Peter is saying. Two things. One, I think that the commute for many of us is the worst part of the day, but it is a part of the day. It is a border between parts of your life. And one of the things that I started doing early in the pandemic that I was grateful for was doing a virtual commute. So, I was working from the same room maybe as I was sort of hanging out in the morning or evening. But I would go for a run in the evening and a walk in the morning. And those were just, again, just to set myself into a different mode, because when we're working from home, we're also living at work. And it's important to not let those boundaries dissolve so much that you're just burning out constantly. The other thing is to set boundaries between different types of work. Like Peter, and Martin and Marshall, I'm sure like you as well, the pandemic meant so many more meetings. And meetings, especially Zoom meetings, can be draining for a number of reasons. One, there's like those tiny video delays, so it's very difficult to connect as well as you might live. But second, I mean, meeting with people requires a certain type of social energy. And for me, at least, the explosion of meetings made me exhausted of being with people. And I'm an extrovert. So if it could turn me introverted, it could do that to anybody. So what I started doing was creating what I called maker days and manager days. So I would pick a couple of days a week when I would really try to switch it on socially, be with my people all day, have back-to-back meetings all day. But then the next day, I would reserve for deep work, typically for writing or data analysis, something that I could only do alone. And creating that rhythm where I knew that I could go all in with my people, really engage empathically, but then sort of withdraw a little bit and allow myself to be that kind of lone creative intellectual meant everything for me. So that's one way that I would encourage us to sort of think about, okay, we're full of meetings. Can we also get real work done? Yes, but you need to make time for it.